The following is an ESG On Location video.
So this week's event is NetApp Insight in the lovely city of Las Vegas, just for people who don't get to go to Vegas enough. So Insight's an interesting word. It's actually, with NetApp, almost what's out of sight that's actually caused a lot of the interest this week. First, we had the announcement over the weekend, you can't get away from this, of the impending Dell acquisition of EMC. Huge news for the storage and data management industry in general. And second, of course, although he was in sight, we have the change of leadership at NetApp. The impact of George Kurian and how he wants to lead the company, some ways the same, some ways very different from the prior generation of leadership. It's going to be very interesting to see the impact that has, both from a product and a marketing and a positioning perspective. So before we talk a little bit more about what that all is, let's hear from my colleagues Scott Sinclair and Jason Buffington about some of the more prosaic, current best practices, offers and marketing messages around the storage side of the business and the data protection side of the business.
The one thing that I heard that I really liked was the NetApp executives all saying, we're going to get louder on what we do. We know we do things well, but obviously we've been really modest about it in the past, and that's held them back, and they're going to change that. That was interesting. But the two things that I saw that are really important. One, you can't go anywhere in this conference and not talk about the data fabric. The same way we talk about data protection being an umbrella term that talks about backup and snapshots and replication and availability, data protection is the Uber term that goes around that. If you think about it, data management is the Uber term over that. It has the data protection copies, the non-data protection copies, and the primary instance data. Anywhere where there's data, the management of all those permutations is part of that. Well, data fabric is really just the vision that NetApp has for how they're going to manage that data across the infrastructure, whether it's on their metal or whether it's in somebody else's cloud. That's really exciting. The last thing I heard that I saw that I really liked was everywhere you went, people were talking about AltaVault. Now, it was about a year ago that NetApp bought Steel Store from Riverbed, and I said that it was a smart purchase, and now you can see the fruit of that, because everywhere they want to talk about how are you going to get your data to the cloud, AltaVault is part of the punchline for that, and that's a smart move that people should be looking at.
IT providers are responding to the cloud era in a number of different ways. Some storage providers are embracing the hybrid cloud, others are trying to ignore it, and some are actually going through massive acquisitions. NetApp is all about embracing the hybrid cloud, and they believe they have a distinctly differentiated story, and that's around choice. While a number of storage providers are all about locking you into a cloud ecosystem, NetApp's data fabric is designed to allow IT organizations to choose the cloud provider, the environment that they need. A number of players in the industry think of NetApp as some traditional storage architecture, some traditional storage player. But honestly, when you look at the data fabric concept, the idea is in line with some of the more forward-thinking startups that you would have thought of. So really, NetApp seems to have the right technology and the right strategy. The question is, as a company, can they get that message out there? And NetApp seems to be following it up with some very aggressive marketing. They've positioned themselves directly against VNX this week, and it'll be interesting to see how that story continues. So the bottom line is, NetApp looks to have a great strategy with data fabric in the hybrid cloud. It's just in their court to execute.
My thanks to both Jason and Scott for summarizing some of the key product elements that need to be understood. Now, I said in the introduction to this piece that there are also bigger forces at play, both things that NetApp can do and things that, if you like, are being done to it by the other market changes that are impending. That said, NetApp can really only take care of itself right now. And we would have been saying the same even without the Dell and EMC news. With many of the companies in this business, telling the story is difficult because some companies just don't have very many good plot elements, if you like. NetApp has always had great plot elements, but hasn't had a great ability to really tell that story, and frankly, not just tell that story in a compelling way, which is really coming together under the data fabric messaging that we're getting, but also turn from being just the nice company in the business, which it's always been, you know, the great place to work and so on. I'm not saying any of that is bad, but George Kurian has made it very clear that just being the nice company to deal with is no longer enough. And we saw signs of a new and good edginess in the aggressive sales campaign that was launched at Monday at this event.